continuing coverage of Historicon 2019 rolls on, everybody. Okay, I'm over here, and we're looking at a board of, I think it's bolt action, then chain of command, and then back to bolt action. Right. We're looking at Saipan 1944. Now, as a former Marine, and also just a fan of the, here you go, hey, there's always at least one of us running around. Anything in the Pacific, anything Marine Corps is always going to be on my hit list. So why don't you tell us a little bit about, well, first of all, hi, I'm sorry.
I'm Scott Landis.
Scott Landis, okay.
Former Navy officer, so.
Oh, okay, awesome.
Retired.
So we are, so why don't you tell us a little bit about your game and what you have going on here?
Okay, so we made the decision, the theme for this convention is jungle terrain, and Saipan itself was interesting because it provided some jungle, but it also had a lot of other elements. And so what we did is we incorporated in jungle into the three different games we're going to do over the course of today. The first phase is the beach landing, obviously. It has jungle around the edge of the beach. But most of Saipan itself was actually cultivated. It had sugarcane. There was actually a sugarcane factory. This is to represent Green Beach. The town is over there. The town was devastated. The bombardment took it out. But they didn't really bombard much here. It didn't have much effect. So you're seeing the landing. You're seeing that effect. As we go into the next phase, which will be the airfield, and remember that was the main reason for going into Saipan, was they had two primary airfields, one with a very long airstrip. That one will have jungle on the edge. The Marines will be coming out of the jungle going to attack the airfield. What's interesting about that aspect is that was the largest tank battle in the Pacific outside of, I'll say the Chinese, those pre-war kind of...
Largest in the Pacific, maybe not the largest in Asia.
Correct. But is part of that. So that's why we went to chain of command to give kind of a different feel for the for the tank battle, and that will also have more of an open area, but it'll have jungle on the edges, so the Marines will be coming out. The last phase of this will be the attack on the ridge, and that has yet a different twist on it. The Marines will be again coming out of the jungle, going against the ridge, but it will be a lot of tension there because the ridge, we have tunnels and we have holes that the guys can come out of, spider holes and so forth. So there'll be a lot of surprise attacks on that. The other part that's interesting is in Saipan there was a lot of civilians here. And the civilians were told by the Japanese that the Americans were going to kill them and rape, murder, and pillage them. You Marines, you. So the Marines actually got into a humanitarian aspect, which is kind of different for them, and it's the start of what is today one of the core tenets of the Marines is the humanitarian aspect. And so that's part of the ridge is to try to get to the ridge before all the civilian population commits.
I was wondering if we were going to get into that. Yeah, that's one of the not so nice aspects of Saipan is what happened with the civilian population at the end of the battle there. Now, on the gaming table, what we're looking at, what some of our European viewers who are more familiar with D-Day might not be too familiar with, are these, Jerry, if you can zoom in on these amphibious tractors or Amtraks.
One here and
there's another one down there. So this was a little bit better than what the guys over in Normandy had to work with. But this was usually the first wave the Marines would send in with Amtrak armor, and then the second and third wave would be with more conventional Higgins boats. As far as like a little bit of a broader context, Pacific War was more or less driven in two axes of advance. You have the really heavy jungle part, the southern, that's the part under MacArthur. This is part of Chester Nimitz's Central Pacific Drive.
Right.
So like you were talking about all the airfields, it's island hopping from airfield to airfield. And what brings us up to that last point is these are the airfields, Saipan, Tinian, and Guam, from which we eventually started to bomb Japan and where the A-bomb was eventually launched from.
Correct. And that's one of the reasons why the Americans, when they did their bombardment, they did not want to devastate the airfields. So they did get some on the airfields, but they had to manage where they were doing their bombardment. So they had intel. The Japanese actually thought they were going to come into the town, or at least that was one of their theories, like contingencies, and the Americans leveled it, and then they came in here. And the airfield, one of the airfields was very close to this beach, and then there's another one that was close to the ridge line that we're...
Yeah, Saipan was a nasty one, folks, really. The invasion fleet in Saipan set sail on June 6th, 1944, the exact day the first paratroopers we're landing over there in Europe. This is almost like the other D-Day, a simultaneous D-Day that was happening on the other side of the world. Just a quick note about how big World War II really was.
Exactly, and part of the reason why we went with this, besides just the what I'll call the jungle theme of Historicon, was that we felt that this was a battle that when you get into this anniversary year, that doesn't get a lot of credit. So we wanted to kind of emphasize something. I mean, a lot of people are doing Peleliu and some of the other battles. This is one that doesn't get a lot, and I think it has a lot of different aspects, which was one of the reasons why we went to do it.
Its strategic importance is literally immeasurable. It's where all the bombing of Japan would take place from here on. The reason they wanted these islands are just in range for the new B-29s coming out.
Exactly, and it also had supply chain routes that they could get to it easily. And remember too, this was a two-part battle. You had Tinian and had Saipan. So it was not an easy foothold for them to gain. So it took some, and there was a naval aspect to this as well. So.
Yeah, it's taking place almost at the exact same time as Overlord. So yeah, you're right. It always gets overshadowed. But yeah, so it's great that you guys are doing it.
Please stop back later in the day so you can see how the terrain evolves, and you'll get to see going from the beach landing to the airfield and then to the ridge.
Okay, so we're doing the beach landing in Bolt Action 2nd Edition, the airfield battle in Chain of Command,
correct,
and then the ridge battle again in Bolt Action.
That's correct. And it'll be through the course of the day today.
Okay, well, thanks very much for taking the time.
Got it. Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Hope you guys enjoy the show.
Okay, guys, we're going to go ahead and sign off for now. Please continue to join us and post below as we continue our coverage for 2019 Historicon.